Go ahead and click in here.
Test.
And yes, here we go. It is the new year. Happy 2024, everyone. I'm Ethan, and of course, we've got Sakib next to me here. And Sakib had quite a journey in Bangladesh. Am I saying that correctly,
Yeah.
Sakib? It's not Bangladesh, it's Bangladesh. And I've been trying to pronounce it correctly ever since. Sakib, spent years and years and years letting me say it the incorrect way, and then many years later, he finally corrects me, and now I'm trying to hold true to that. So
Actually, my
great to
that
yeah,
that
go ahead.
correct you, but yeah.
Great to see everybody here. We've got some familiar faces, and hopefully, we're going to have some new faces come up. I've noticed that some people that really didn't participate much earlier on in the project are starting to have more of a voice now and having more participation. So good to see everybody here. And Sakib, where do we want to begin? I'm showing the stock to flow here. I think we should maybe dive in with that.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Let's.
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. So, um, actually, I'm not going to zoom in there. I'm going to zoom in on the browser. So, hopefully, everybody in YouTube land can see this more clearly. Sakib, can you explain what the stock to flow is for everybody out there?
Sure. So the stock to flow model is a model that's used in many aspects, such as, for example, um, what it's showing
You're
is
breaking up on my end, Sakib. Your audio's only coming in like every other word.
okay. You hear me better now?
No, your audio's still breaking up. Your video's good, but your audio is breaking up.
Testing one.
Yeah, you're fading in and out. Yeah, it's broken for me. Sakib, it looks like maybe your Wi-Fi is weak or something.
No, I'm on wire.
Okay, you're on wired. Now this is very interesting because you're not coming through. So while you're dealing with your audio technical gremlins, Sakib, I'm going to go ahead and take over. The stock to flow is basically a measure of supply and demand, and it can be applied to any kind of asset or any kind of commodity. And what it does is this middle line here shows the average of where the supply and demand should be. And the colorful lines, the rainbow line, we'll call them, shows where the actual price action is. So this median line shows where the price should be, and the colorful line shows where the actual price is. And as we can see with Bitcoin, every time it has a halvening, and it's had one, two, three, and it's coming up on the fourth halvening now, we can see there's a huge jump in the price action or the predicted price average that it should be at. And one of the things that's fascinating is that I've found, historically, that when the price is greatly under the stock to flow model, that there's a compensation for that it goes, phenomenally over the stock to flow model in the bull run. And we can see this is evident in pretty much every single bull run that we've done. With the first bull run being the most significant, we could see there was a huge deficit there, and then there was a huge rebound above the average in the bull run. And we can also see that in the secondary bull run, there was also a pocket of deficit, and there were a couple points actually where it had deficit. But what's interesting is if we look at kind of the volume of deficit, it can give us an idea of what the volume of overcompensation should be. And we can see that in the last bull run, because we didn't really have much of a deficit, we just had this one little point in the capitulation, where Bitcoin, I think it went from like 6,000 all the way to 3,000. That was the capitulation. We had this one little point where it went underneath the stock to flow, and it pretty much remained above that ever since. And that's why we got kind of a ho hum, really boring bull run. and we didn't get
Yeah.
these fantastic parabolics that we got in these previous bull runs because we really just didn't have a price action below what the median price action should be. And so now it all really makes sense to me that we got just this little pocket that went above the stock to flow, and I think we got a little teeny tiny pocket right here. But what's very fascinating about this market and this stock to flow is that we have this huge deficit pocket right here. So this is an indicator to me that when we do go up in the bull run rise, that we're also going to have a large pocket created above the predicted price that stock to flow predicts. And stock to flow predicts that the price is going to be 450K, 446K, something like that. So it would not surprise me or amaze me if Bitcoin price action went into the 600s, perhaps even breaking $1 million. That's all very possible. It just depends on how sharp the parabolic goes up. But I think in general, it would be very logical and reasonable. And again, none of this is financial advice, and I'm explaining all of my conclusions based off of evidence and real observation. But just because past indicators are not an indicator of future performance, I'm just saying that I personally would not be surprised at all if Bitcoin reaches the 600, 700K region in this next bull run, and it's because of this past information by looking at the stock to flow. And so where does that put us in the current state of affairs? Because everybody's kind of been asking, what are my thoughts about Bitcoin? And there's a lot of things going on right now. And I think the most significant that's going on is there's new generation hardware that is ultra efficient. And by ultra efficient, I mean below 20 watts per terahash. And there's also new generation technologies being implemented, such as hydro cooling. So instead of using air cooling, using hydro cooling to cool the machines. And this has several benefits. One, it keeps the temperature super stable and it makes the machines last much, much longer. But another added benefit is because the temperature is so stable, almost equivalent to immersion, or actually better than immersion cooling, you can now overclock these machines and you can squeeze more, calculations out of them, more terahash out of them. And so these are major, major factors that we have to look into going into this next mining cycle. And they're going to change a lot of things. My initial thought, well, first of all, we have to look at what's out in the wild. So what's out in the wild is what I would call first, second, and third generation S19. Now, the fourth generation S19K Pros that we have for the Mineopoly project, those things are absolute superstars. And our concern in this bear market was that the first and second generation, and possibly even the third generation S19 series miners, were not going to be able to survive the halvening, especially with Bitcoin below, we'll say, $40,000. And with price of power being what it is, it wasn't a survivable event. Now I'm changing my perspective on that. And what's changing my perspective on that is, A, the price of Bitcoin is relatively high. And if it stays at this point into the halvening, we can expect these previously less efficient miners, they will keep hashing. They will stay plugged in. Now, the amazing thing about this is they're not going to generate much crypto. They're going to be profitable, but they're going to be just barely profitable. So what's really interesting is, even though we have a relatively small project, we have 80 machines in total, we actually get to keep more of the Bitcoin mined than operations that have 1, 2, 3, even 5 megawatts. After they pay their power bill, that dust that they have left in their wallet is not as much as we've got left after we pay all of our expenses. And so that's one of the major advantages to having an ultra low power cost, is that you get to keep that coin that you're mining. And so this is going to be really interesting, that I think a lot of the network is going to stay plugged in. I think they're going to be profitable on dust. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be kind of like all for nothing because at the end of the day, well, this is also another indicator of why the value of Bitcoin is going to go astronomically high to like 600K because then that dust actually becomes a substantial sum. And, so all these indicators are kind of pushing me to think that these things will happen. So in the short term, what I think is I think we're going to try to break through this area of resistance. And I'll go ahead and try to zoom in because I know you guys probably can't see as well on here when I share through.
Yeah, now I can see it better.
You can see it better, yeah. So I'm just zooming in a bit here. So as you can see, when we previously did the bull run, I'm very careful to mark and note these places of what I call resistance and support. And they're denoted by these red lines that I extend out. And I'll kind of extend them out like many years into the future because those are critical areas, those are critical junction points that are giving me indications as to the strength of movement of what Bitcoin is going to do. And if we really, really zoom in, I'm going to zoom in. This is a weekly time scale, by the way, folks. So not a daily or anything like that. But we can see that for the last, we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, we've been trying to break through this resistance. So when Bitcoin price is below, it is resistance. When Bitcoin price is above, it becomes support for Bitcoin to land on. Right? So it gives me an idea of a good place to buy and sell. Right? So when it was bounced off of this, and every time Bitcoin attacks resistance, that resistance becomes weaker and weaker. So we can see previously at this resistance point, which was like 29K to, we'll say, 31K, we can say Bitcoin tried many times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it dipped down again. And then it really pushed through and it just broke on through and went pretty much straight up to the next point of resistance. And so this will now be support. So if Bitcoin fails at this resistance point, what it's going to try to settle back down towards is this support. And in doing this attack, you can see it also created another area, and this goes all the way back to this X wave in the correction of support, and I found this as a support. So we've got 1, 2 times that it tested and it held firm there. And it was this second time that it really tested in this area. That would have been my signal to buy if I were a buyer. Of course, I don't pay retail for Bitcoin. Why should I pay retail when I can get it at cost? But that would be my indication to buy. And then, obviously when it would test this, because it's very rare, unless we're in a full, just crazy bull run market.
Yeah.
It's very rare that we're going to break through this. So we're going to have to define this. And that's why I marked it from the very, very beginning, because I knew it was going to be a place of interest that needed to be defined later on, many years down the road. And that's exactly what's happening here. But yes, so this would be a place that I would sell. And if we kind of look at, take a look here. Look at my, there's a profit and loss.
I pretty much have exactly the same opinion as you. I think that if we get rejected here, then we're going to test that support again around 30K, or maybe a little bit above 30K.
So,
And yeah.
Following my experience, that would have been a 76% gain in a relatively short time. Looks like 22 bars, so about 150 days. So that would have been a phenomenal gain. Actually, let me do that a little bit more accurately here with the shift key. Yeah, so 112 days, that would have been an 84% gain. And that's really how you do the swing trading in crypto. And what's great is you guys have Bitcoin in your wallet. So you can be, in a buying, selling phase right now. Now would be the time to sell. Wait for this correction, wait for it to get near this support, and then buy back in. And that would give you a gain. Let's take a look at what that would be like. Let's go shift here. That would give you, a roughly 30% gain on what you're holding. So if you sell on a good day when it tests this, and you buy back in 30% later, then you would gain 30% of what your holdings are. And there's absolutely nothing to stop you guys from trading while the bull run is going up. You don't have to just be like holder, 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 holder. Again, none of this is financial advice, but it's just to give you, I guess, a theory, a strategy that you guys can, possibly cultivate and develop and formulate of how to increase your holdings even during, the bull run, even during mining cycles. And one of the great things about mining is that, let's say you did a really bad trade, you did a really crummy trade. In just the buying and selling of Bitcoin, you'd just be out of luck. There wouldn't be fresh Bitcoin going into your wallet next month. You might just have to stick in that bad trade for, hold on to it for eons and eons and eons until you get in a situation where you feel like you can clear out of it. So, a lot of people ask, well, why should I mine? Why should I mine Bitcoin when I can just buy it and hold on to it and I can make X amount? Well, because it's multifaceted with mining. You have an asset, a residual asset, the mining machines themselves, right, which a lot of people don't factor, a lot of people don't understand that. You're also acquiring the asset at cost, right, and you're able to put it into a retail market and make profit margins on that, and then the movement of the retail market, you're able to get even further holdings from that. And, the power, people don't understand that the power, cheap power, has an intrinsic value. Right now, a lot of these older generation, we'll say generation 1, generation 2, S19 miners, they don't want to make crypto dust in their wallet through the bull run. They want to make as much Bitcoin as they can. How do they do that? They need our super cheap power. So the demand for what we're doing and how we're growing in the UAE has gone up. Saki, I mean, this
like
is what makes
10x.
me think, yeah, this is what makes me think we're on a bull run, because we've got people with old generation gear that are just begging us. Like our our dance card is really, really full. Like today, I was exhausted. We went to 6 different sites today. We're looking at 6 new sites, 6 new megawatts of power that we've got to build out. And we were just, running all the numbers, and it kind of makes your head spin. Just all the things that we're doing here. And it's great news for us. It's great news for you guys, supply and demand. And when the supply is small, the demand is high, the price goes up, the value goes up. And so when you're mining, you have multiple assets that are gaining in value, right? When you're just trading Bitcoin, you just have that one asset, and that's it. And what, to be really great at it, you have to be perfect at it, right? And I'm not a perfect trader. Saqib, are you a perfect trader?
No, 99% of traders lose money.
Yeah,
So
I don't think any of us are perfect traders. And so there's a lot of risk involved with that. It looks simple on paper, when you're just a simpleton, you're looking at, oh, I bought here and I buy there. It's speculative. But the thing is tomorrow never knows. We don't know if now's the time to buy or now's the time to sell, right? I don't know. I'm telling you in theory what my gut is telling me after years and years of experience in this, but I still am not giving financial advice. I absolutely don't know. Bitcoin could break through this resistance tomorrow, and we could be in a completely different picture than what we are now. But what my gut is saying is we're going to test it, we're going to correct a bit, and then we're going to go for it and we're going to break through it. That's what my gut is saying. But, nobody
same here.
knows.
I think it'll make the bull run stronger, because if we test the support, we create a base, and then from there we can launch back up. And we also wash out a lot of these leveraged longs and things like that.
Well, we always look whenever we're looking for a strategy to trade. We don't use just one piece of evidence to make a decision. We use a confluence. We look for what's called a confluence of evidence, and the confluence that I'm seeing here is the stock to flow. So we are right here touching where the price action should be according to the stock to flow, and I don't see it breaking through that pre-bull run. Typically, when it breaks through that, let's kind of look historically here. It was after the halvening is when it broke through here, and it did some teasing, like it just kind of teetered along with it and did a little bit of a break and a little bit of dip, but it was after the halvening that it really took off. And we're pretty close to the halvening, guys. So, I mean, I think we're just going to really bide our time and teeter at this resistance until the halvening. And then I believe this may be the most epic bull run Bitcoin has ever experienced. And I think this is what's going to take Bitcoin, because in all these other previous Bitcoins, everybody's like, oh, this is imaginary. It's just a fad. Da, da, da. I think this time is when it's going to get like fully legit. It's going to get regulated. It's going to get, everybody's going to jump in. Sakib, do you have anything to add?
And, well, I think that that also means that we might have less volatility in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, as an asset matures, you have less volatility. It becomes more stable. The price becomes more stable, and so this may be one of the last opportunities to make an immense amount of money in the Bitcoin market.
For sure. Well, I mean, I think it's never too late to get in, but I think from here on out, the face melting days of going from like $1 to $4,000, like those kind of opportunities are not going to be as present. I still think it's going to be a top performing asset compared to the stock market. But I think the days of just becoming the Bitcoin millionaire, the Bitcoin billionaire, and all these rappers, that's when when you guys start seeing these freaking YouTube songs with these idiots like, I'm a Bitcoin millionaire, and he's got little Bitcoins in his hand and stuff like that, then right? When your grandma calls you up and says,
Sell.
I heard you guys were doing something in Bitcoin. Can you tell me more about it? Then we're in the bull run. No, it goes on, man. Like, when that friend you haven't spoken to in 2 years since the last bear market, when they start calling you up and saying, yo, man, I'm short on money. All I got is $50. How can I get this Bitcoin? When that happens, that's when I mean, that's always my indicators. When all these people that never even want to ever talk to me or don't want nothing to do with me scratch and claw and find their way, find my number in their phone or whatever, and start blowing me up, that's when I tell Sakib we're on. And I feel like that's just around the corner, Sakib. I really do. I mean, we've heard in our circles, people are trying to run S9s now. I mean, S9s are like 8 years old. They're like ancient technology. And if people are trying to run S9s and be profitable in those and fix and repair those, then we know something is definitely afoot. But you guys may have also noticed that I have these 3 lines here. And you may be asking yourself, what are those 3 lines? What do those represent? And I'll show you. Just a second here. Let me zoom out a little bit. So we take a look here. I'm going to use my control on my keyboard and duplicate this. Take a look at this line. You can see that the angle matches up perfectly with the last bull run. And take a look at this line. Actually, that's duplicating a duplicate here. Let me delete that one. Take this line. You can see that the angle matches up perfectly with the previous bull run. Not the previous, but the one we just had. So what am I using these to indicate for me? It's letting me know what I term as velocity, right? So if we use this middle line, that's dead in the middle. If we go above this middle line, then I know the velocity or the movement of BTC is going to go in a faster parabolic. If we go along this bottom line, which we're just now starting to touch, and again, all the indicators are starting to show, like everybody's getting bullish and things like that, that's kind of given me like the bottom movement of what it can do. And you may have also noticed that we've got these green and red squares. The green squares are the bull runs, and the red squares are the corrections, the bear markets, right? And so this is going to give me, this is what I'm using as kind of my top end indicator. And top end, it could be as high as 750 if we just hit the median between these 2 bull runs. If we just hit the average, we're looking at 750 as a price action. If we do something really crummy, I don't know, Trump decides to blow up the world or something like that with his secrets, then we're looking at kind of a minimum of 250. And if we do something just astronomically crazy, I'm looking at 2.3 million. So it kind of gives me, and again, that's the whole thing is nobody can say with absolute perfection, but we need to know what large, medium, and small look like, right? So if we have a small bull, we can expect this price. If we have an average, we can expect this. And if we have a large, we can expect this. And it just kind of helps me get a good gauge on where things are, where we are in the bull run, and gives me that idea of where is the peak of that mountain where I should cash out, because that's the critical moment, right? None of this even matters if you don't get out at the right time. And I've also averaged this green square, so this bull market, I've averaged it between the size of these two as well. So as long as everything is staying within these averages, we should be good. We should be good to go. And by my guess, we are halfway into the bull run right now as we are talking. And again, none of this is financial advice. None of this is just my dead reckoning of Bitcoin in the market. And, this is after years and years and years and years and years of studying it. So this is just kind of my methodology, my dead reckoning of how things are going to go down. What's going to be exciting to me is if we break an all-time high before the halving. Because once we break the all-time high...
Be a first.
Yeah. Well, number one, it'll be a first. Number two, there's no limit above. There's no ceilings. Like, that's when new resistance and new supports gets defined. So it'll be very interesting if something like that happens, right? But, it makes perfect logical sense to me. Typically, we have a trace back to 10% of the price action. So if the support is at 65K, then it's reasonable for the price action to go up to 650K and then, go back down to just 10% of that valuation, right? That's historically what happens. If the price action goes to 450K, then we can expect it to return down to this 45.
To 45, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that how you can now see that these numbers in the future are being defined by what is reality right here in front of us today, right? So it'll be really interesting to see if we break that 65K. If we break it early, I'm optimistic that that's going to be our new landing spot. If we don't, if we struggle, then I would say our new landing zone is going to be in the 45K region that we're testing right now. Well, yeah, it's a beautiful thing, but the thing is, yeah, I'm just reading what Aaron says here. Let me go ahead and change the screen. Aaron says, steadier gains, less volatile crashes, going to be a beautiful thing. Well, I like the volatility, Aaron, and I'll tell you why, because, I get to make my money twice, right? I get to make my money gaining up, and then I know when to sell, and then I get to make, I get to add another 90% to it when I buy back in. And if there's less volatility, you don't have that opportunity anymore. You lose that. You have to just become a long-term holder. You just have to hold and hold and hold, which is great, because as long as you're outpacing inflation, it's all good. But, like, to make the crazy money, you need the crazy volatility. It's vital. It's important. And I think this is going to be the last run where, well, I don't know.
100%.
Let me look at the BLX. So I'm going to zoom out of this here, and I'm going to go to my BLX. And you may see that I have another chart here. This is Bitcoin from all time is what I like to call it. So from the very beginning of time, this is Bitcoin. And you can see I've defined three parameters. I've defined a top-end parameter, a median parameter, and a bottom parameter. And if we reach the top end of, this crazy chart that I've made, it looks like we're going to be in the 672K, something like that region.
Yeah.
And then,
looks like.
and again, all of these lines and these angles and everything are defined off the averages, and looking at the pattern, you can see it's like a sawtooth pattern coming in, and it's a sawtooth that's becoming less and less steep. It's going less and less peaky and becoming more and more smoothed out. So I think after this one, we've got one more before it smooths out into this middle region here, the median. You may be asking, what's this yellow line up here? The yellow line defines $1 million. So when Bitcoin constantly stays above this line, that's when it will reach the $1 million. And I think, yeah, we've got two more runs at it before it averages out to that, is what I'm seeing. So it'll be this bull run and then one more bull run where we're going to go way above $1 million, and then it's going to start to average and settle down. And that's when we're going to have the slow gains. And when time-wise do I predict that? 2032 is what my chart is saying. So we still got a ways to go. We probably got a decade left of being able to make really, really crazy money with crypto. And then after this next decade is over, that's it. It's going to be just kind of like stock markets. It's, you're going to have good days and bad days, but it's just going to be slow and steady growth in general overall. And I've set a personal goal for myself to make $100 million in the next 10 years. That's $100 million cash on top of all my other assets. But, $100 million liquid capital is what I want to make in the next 10 years. And I think it's very achievable. I think it's very, especially with the way things are going now. Yeah. So I need more NFT. Well, see, NFTs actually, I see them as kind of going on their way out. I was catching up on The Simpsons the other day, and I noticed that they made an episode about NFTs, and they were basically blasting them. They're like, they're all dead, they're all worthless. Like Homer was going through and he was killing like all the other NFTs to get more valuable, and then like the Bored Ape like said something, and he just like his value crashed and it tanked. The problem with NFTs is unless they are attached to a utility like mining, like what we're doing, they're pretty much just worth the art that people see in them. Whatever people think they're worth is what they're worth, and we already know that the art market of NFTs has crashed enormously. So.
And as we explained before, I mean, even just owning an NFT, you don't really own
You don't
anything.
really own that, yeah. The real value was the contract, the immutable blockchain contract that you're going to get crypto for having this item in your possession. Well, having the contract of the item in your possession, I should say. And
He says, I hate NFTs. I mean, Monopoly
okay,
NFTs only.
Monopoly NFTs. Well, if Monopoly were to do, like right now, it's crazy. Like we could, if we were to try to launch another phase right now, unless you guys like literally had, how many people joined? Like we had 125 members, I think, total.
Yeah.
We'd need to be 10,000 strong. Yeah,
Right.
because we would have to do things so fast. We would have to raise capital so fast because it gets crazy in the bull run. If we drag this out 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, things are going to double, triple in price. Like there's just no way we could pull anything off. But we would need to be thousands upon thousands strong in order, like, unless we're just idiots. And that's the problem is there's going to be greedy kids out there. And if you guys watch BitCon, on Netflix, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There's going to be people out there that think the whole world works as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. And they're going to go out and they're going to say stupid things. They're going to be irresponsible. They're going to get people's money without really understanding what they're getting into. And they're going to end up ripping everybody off. And it's time it stops. It just needs to stop. It needs to end. Like the reason why I'm not going to do it is because I know the dangers that are associated. I know that it's going to get me on a path where I'm going to be taking everybody's money. And, if I can't get enough money within the short time frame, I'm not going to be able to deliver. And that's why I'm thinking, Sakib, if we were to do something moving forward, it would be more like, like you just put in your reserve. And when the timer ends out, we either, everything lines up and everything's ready to go, or it's not. And we say, sorry, folks, we had a good try, but, right now things are just 3 times higher than when we started and we can't do it anymore, Like
That would be the only way because there's
That
no
would
way
be
to
the
control
only
the price of
exactly.
miners.
That would be the only way that I would do it. Is I would just basically you put your money in and it goes into like a cold storage wallet or whatever, and then when the timer runs out, we either have enough to get things going, or we just refund everybody their money back and say, sorry folks, we don't want to waste your time, we don't want to waste your money, but it's a completely different world than when we started. That would be the only way I would do another project. That would be the only
Yeah,
way.
like we can't just like in the bear market we can say one NFT is 15 terahash. We can't do it the same way in the bull market because the price of 15 terahash is constantly going up.
Oh, it gets crazy. It gets like insane. Um, but yeah, I mean, the way I would do it is it would just have to be really abstract like that. Like, let's just run, raise as much capital as possible. And then when we get to a milestone in capital, I would say, here's where we are. Here's what we can do. And you guys either say, yeah, let's move forward with it, or you say, that's not meeting my expectations. This Yahoo kid and a group of kids that say they worked with Citibank for 20 years, even though they're only 20 years old themselves. They're promised me 1,000x. I want to put the money in that, and then we'll say, okay, here's your money back, even though you're going to lose it. But that would be the only way that I would do it, and I would do it just to set apart like from everybody else, like because here's the thing: we're not a bunch of greedy kids that want your money, right? That's where things tend to all fall apart. Is you get these young people, and I don't have anything against young people, but you get we'll just say people that lack experience,
Experience
people,
and wisdom.
yeah, people that are not wise with financials, and they think the world is much more simplistic than what it actually is, and then they start making these audacious promises, and then people start believing them, and then the greed kicks in, and that's where 20 million, $100 million just gets lost. It just evaporates. I mean, SBF did it, right? What was the name of the?
Kwan,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Luna and Do Kwan.
No, I'm gonna say Luna and Do
No, I'm
Kwon
gonna say
is different. What he did is he just didn't anticipate a bank rush, and what he had in his system actually was sustainable and actually worked. The problem was is he had no safeguards to say, the stock market, if it drops a certain amount, it powers off.
there's
It
a
complete Yeah, there's a circuit breaker that will turn it off, right? And I think the lesson to be learned with Luna and all that, and I think Luna will come back. And again, I'm not a lunatic or any of that stuff, but fundamentally, it had all the right principles. Where it failed is it didn't have that circuit breaker. And if it had that circuit breaker, and if it had the opportunity for quality people to come in while the cool off period was happening and level everybody's head out and stop the bank run, I think it would have been survivable. I think it'd still be up and running today. And that's the thing is everybody always just looks towards the good. They never. Me as an engineer, the first thing that I look for is failure. All day today, I was looking in electrical boxes. I was looking at grids. We were looking at busted, blown up transformers, and I said that one failed first, and then they came in with that one, and that one blew up, and then they put in the 500 kVA right over here. Like the first thing that I'm looking for is what happens when everything falls apart. How will I survive? How will I do that? And then I make educated decisions from that point, right? So I know what I'm going to do in a worst case scenario, in the bug out scenario. I've got that planned out before I even make my first step on the journey. And the problem is people just don't think like that. As an engineer, the first thing that I look at when I'm looking at a manufacturing line is, what's going to be my failure rate, per cycle or per hour or per day, or I'm looking at that, and then I'm engineering a solution of how we're going to handle that failure rate, what we're going to do, what's going to be the steps, going to be the process. We did the same thing even with our power situation. So it was very foggy last week, and it took out all the power in our entire area. All the plots of lands went down, and me and Sakib, we sat down and we wrote a checklist. If power goes out, we need to determine these kind of critical points. Is it local? Is it local just to our plot of land, or is it regional? right? And if it's regional, we've got a list of steps of things we do. We call, our AADC representatives, we call the linemen that we know in the area, and we get an ETA, like, what's the problem and how soon can it be fixed? If it's local, then we have a different contractor that we call to come on site and handle those things. And so that's the first thing I figure out, guys. Before I step into anything, is I figure out, what's the doomsday scenario and how do we anticipate it? How do we handle those issues? And then I'm more comfortable and more confident moving forward to the optimistic things that can happen, right? And it's a huge flaw in human thinking is most people don't proceed with that air of caution like I do. They don't think in those terms. They don't think along those lines. And so when
I
everything,
mean,
yeah.
engineering you design for, for failure.
Oh,
Like that's
absolutely.
why you have
Failure
Six
is a
Sigma.
part of the process, right? There's no such thing as perfection. And uh, any engineer that does not anticipate and design failure into their engineer, they're a shit engineer, right? They're a shit engineer. And so, yeah, that's one of the things I would say that make us fundamentally different than all the people in the space is that, our critical thinking skills are being applied to the worst case scenario from day one. And once we have the worst case scenario figured out to a level of our comfort, then we move ahead with, the optimistic and, we might be able to get 3 megawatts. We might be able to get 5 megawatts here. And then we go on to those things, right? Okay, yeah, it looks like Sakib, you did a thing here, rejected.
Yeah,
Honestly, Sakib, I think
clients.
my boring, um, my boring side says that it's going to just bounce off, what we're testing now and retest. But there's another side of me, Bitcoin always, one of the things I love about it is it always throws us for a loop. It always surprises us. So I would not also be surprised if it just kind of maintained where it is, and then after the halvings just shot up like a rocket. But in any case, like I don't know, it's fun to dream about these things, but I try not to waste too much of my time on it because
Speculative.
it's so speculative. And at the end of the day, is it making me money? Is it bringing me towards my $100 million cash, liquid capital goal? No, it's not really doing that. So is it really an effective use of my time to like dream about this all day and think about this all day? I mean, like I said, it's fun to do when I have a free moment and I'm constantly going back through my charts and looking at things. But at the end of the day, I feel it's just not an effective use of my brain power and my time. It's not a wise use of it. Because there's other things that I can be doing that are far more productive and profoundly more impactive, not only in long-term strategy, but in short-term as well. So I encourage you guys not to fall down, the Bitcoin trading rabbit hole. You, just like Sakib said, 99% of the people lose. So don't let that become your life. Focus on more practical things, more pragmatic things that are going to really make an impact. I mean, at the end of the day, we have absolutely no control. This is all just pure speculation, and it's hope and it's despair, depending on what side of the fence you're on. But also take things the way that I take them, and give yourself a best case, give yourself a worst case, and before you do anything financially, never, ever, ever, ever put in what you can, afford to lose, what you're not willing to lose, which is very sage advice, but also have an exit plan. If things start going the wrong way, getting out quick is your only way of any kind of grace. If you don't get out quick enough, that's when you get stuck into things. And also, just don't listen to the hype. If this new fandangled Doge Shiba Inu Luna crazy hybrid coin everybody's talking about it and it doesn't have any kind of logic to it or make any sense, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh man, if I bought it on Monday I'd be up 10x, Friday, and you're starting to feel that, just go ahead and smack yourself in the face and say, I'm not, this is FOMO. I'm not going to give into it. Because every time you jump on those trains, that's when people get really, really wrecked. And it's so weird too, because it's almost like when you finally break down, like, okay, Caspa has been going up and up and up for 6 months now. 6 months is a long time. Like, if I'd bought it at the beginning, I'd have this much money now, right? You jump into it now, I guarantee you, you're just going to be losing the whole train ride down, and it's all gone. Because the thing is you had to get into it when nobody believed in it, when nobody was talking about it, right? And then the second everybody started believing in it and everybody started talking about it, that's when you need to get out. But now you're kind of in the afterthought. Now let's kind of take a look at the Caspa chart here. I think I've got that on one. Yeah, look at this right here. Right? So the time to get in was right here, November 2022. And the time to get out, look at this. This is a parabolic if I've ever seen one, Ski. Time to get out was that. And all it's going to do from here on out is just go back down to the bottom and become nothing. Diddly squat. But see, you may be looking at this huge parabolic and you're like, oh, this is just a cooling off period. I need to get in and catch the next wave. That's not how it works, folks. I'm sorry. That's not how it works, right? You've already missed it. You've already missed the boat. Yeah. The boat's gone, and it's going to be just a dog from here on out. That's how these work, right? But if you got in here, and then when everybody and their grandma was talking, and you got out there, I mean, geez, let's take a look at what kind of gains that was. That was a mind-melting 12x. Yeah, that was a mind-melting 12x. It was beautiful. It's beautiful, right? But the only way you get in and get out is either if you're stupid or you're lucky. And I don't base my future and my wealth and my happiness on either. I don't use those as my guiding principles. I gamble to a degree just for fun. But I don't take gambles on stuff like this because we've seen this.
What you also,
yeah, go ahead.
What you also have to understand is that Caspa has an ASIC miner out now, and we know what happens whenever an altcoin comes out with an ASIC miner.
Yeah, we know. So, again, not financial advice, guys, but heed the wisdom of a guy who's seen this happen a million times, over and over and over and over again. Again, you either are stupid or you're gambling to get into something like this, and you win out of it out of sheer luck. And it all goes down to the fundamentals. There has to be a sound utility, right? Do not invest in things that do not have a sound and clear utility. Now, if they're pitching you like 30 or 40 different utilities, like, hey, we're going to mine gold and we're going to, cut down trees and make a lumber mill. And they don't have a solid, like jack of all trades, master of none. If they're doing that, be wary of that as well, right? If they don't have something that makes them unique, makes them special in their utility, and they can't, clearly explain from A to Z what they're doing, how it works, how it makes profit, and they can't show you, real world earnings from it, stay away from it. Do yourself a favor, stay away from it, right? The world is not nonsensical, right? So if things don't make sense to you, if they seem like nonsense to you, then they are. Believe in that. That's reality telling you the truth. I'm just going to go ahead and change it here for the Caspa guys here for YouTube. But your time to get out of Caspa was here, folks. So if you missed this, it's okay. I mean, you can still get out. I mean, if you got in early and you get out now, you'll still be good. But don't think that you can just keep holding and holding and holding and it's going to go up and up and up again, because it doesn't have a utility. Right? And stay away from buying altcoin ASICs that are going to be worthless, that are going to be big paperweights that nobody wants to buy, because they look good today, but believe you me, 6 months from now, a year from now, when it's worthless and you can't make any money with it, you're going to be glad you're not holding on to that. All right, yeah, so we'll go ahead and go back to our home screen. I think that wraps up, or that should be wrapping up our AMA. Happy New Year to everybody again. And
yeah.
Really great to see so many people participating in the AMA this
Yes.
time. And Sakib and I, like I said, we spent all day looking at plots of land and evaluating just what's out there for sale and how we can upgrade it, what we can upgrade it to. So we're really looking forward to 2024, showing you guys us breaking new ground, building out new farms from A to Z, and sharing that whole experience with you guys. I'd really love to do that, and not just for you, but just everybody else too, right? So we're hoping in our YouTube channel we will start pumping out like some serious A to Z build out vids. Another really cool thing is we're coming out. I don't want to say with our own product line, but our own specs. So we're talking directly to the manufacturers that manufacture for the mining machines themselves, and we're having them spec out equipment specifically for our needs and our purposes in our farms. And a few years ago we couldn't do that, Sakib. I mean, this is like we have the reputation in the industry now that we can talk to the powers that be and we can tell them what we need them to make for us, and they will start making it. And that's just kind of a phenomenal position to be in as well. That we can literally. I was talking with engineers yesterday. Like, we need the wires to connect to the PDU like this, and they're like, "Okay, I'm going to make a new drawing." And they came back and like they drew it out exactly how I wanted it, and so I was really happy with that. And we're also talking about maybe adding our own brand and becoming a distributor for infrastructure here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it'll be really exciting if those kind of visions can come to be to be a distributor with kind of our own product line and things like that, and be the go-to people for anybody that wants to do build-outs here. And just a lot of exciting things are happening. Did Jod ever get back with you, Sakib? Just out of curiosity.
He hasn't given me the dates and times yet, but he is definitely looking forward to us visiting him this month.
Fantastic. For those of you guys that don't know, Jod is the CEO of Exahertz, which is a billion-dollar B with a, not an M, B with an illion after it, mining project that's happening in the country, just very close, like a 45, 50-minute drive away from where we live, in Oman. And Sakib, I guess you guys just hit it off and became
Yeah.
friends in his first visit to Oman. And I've been looking forward myself to going over and visiting and meeting Jod, who is the CEO to CEO, and just see what we can do to align our visions together. I would like to get, because they're buying billions of dollars worth of S21 hydros. I would like to maybe leverage some of his purchasing power. He has contracts directly with Bitmain. Like, he doesn't use distributors or anything like we do. We use vendors and distributors to acquire all of our gear at wholesale. But he has a direct line into Bitmain, which means that I have a potential direct line to access S21s at a cost lower than even distributors can get. So I'd like to talk with him about us, possibly combining. And, if we were to do like a future Monopoly project, it would be something along those lines, where we would do a capital raise to buy an entire hydro mining container of S21s, and we would leverage the purchase power of Jod with Exahertz with his billion-dollar project to get us a better price than anybody in the universe can get. It'd be something along those lines. I know you guys are probably all like screaming like, "Yay!" Like, calm down. It's just, it's all a possibility, right? Nothing is set in stone. Um,
Yeah, this seems pretty fake. I'm
yeah,
on their website.
1 cent electrical cost is impossible in the UAE.
Yeah.
It's unless you're
And they're an NFT mining project.
yeah,
So
unless you're stealing power, it's not possible. The lowest you can possibly go is about 1.2, 1.3 cents. And again, this is because the exchange rate varies, right? So the US dollar value and the dirham value fluctuate, but it comes out to about 1.2, 1.3 cents. So 1 cent is completely impossible. Um, I don't know of anywhere, unless it's like maybe Kuwait or Iran or some country that the rest of the world, like, it's just a bad idea to go there. Um, those are the only places that I know of that you can secure power. But I do have a vision for creating huge mining facilities, and by huge I mean 500 megawatts plus, sub gigawatt. I would like to go and explore some of these countries that have ultra cheap power. I'd like to go there and maybe put down $50 million and say, look, we're going to build out our own, substation, our own infrastructure and everything. But in exchange, you're going to give me, an international free trade zone and diplomatic immunity and, all these other conditions that'll have to be met. But I would like to one day get sub 1 cent per kilowatt hour power. That would be very nice.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the name that gives these places away. Like
Yeah,
crypto with a
crypto with
K,
a K.
and they call it a
Oh, if you
club.
remember, Ethan, we spoke. These guys reached out to us. They wanted to mine through us or something. And you remember this Yashuda? I mean, I'm not gonna name
Oh,
any names.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. Now it's kind of coming back to me. Yeah. And then he like never returned our call. Like he stood us up and then never returned our call.
Yeah, and they're not licensed to mine or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
okay. So let's look at some red flags here. One is, they're misspelling crypto and they're calling it a miners club. Two, they actually did contact legit miners and they ran like little dogs with their tails tucked between their legs because they got schooled. They were already talking about stuff that was nonsensical, and I was saying that doesn't make sense. We can't do that. And so, they didn't want to look foolish anymore, and so like they declined to reach out. He stood us up, right? We're supposed to have a meeting with him, and then he
these,
bounced, like he
yeah,
ghosted
these
us.
guys are in the Silicon Oasis, if you remember, and they're part of
Oh,
the
okay. Well, first
Silicon
of all,
Oasis Free Zone.
yeah, Silicon Oasis. First of all, is the ghetto, so that kind of clues things in. Yeah, just a lot of the details, guys. The details matter. None of this was adding up. None of their story was adding up. None of this was adding up. And here they are now making impossible promises. This is fraud, folks. And the days of where you can do this out of stupidity and ignorance, they are limited in crypto. If you look at Bitcoin on Netflix, you can see it's cracking down. So these people that are doing this, that are making these irresponsible um, promises and stuff like that, their feet are going to be held under fire. The day of reckoning is coming for them, and it's good. It's about time because it's been one of the biggest frustrations I've had being in this space all these years is we go to these conferences and we just we see all these booths pop up and they got fancy lights and they got a miner that's in a tank and it's running and all this stuff, and we talk to these guys and there's no substance, there's no utility behind their idea, their project. They're just there to raise money, and we never see them again. We see them at that one conference, then the next year when the conference they're gone and they're replaced by a whole nother bunch of group of people, and it just wash, rinse, and repeat, wash, rinse, and repeat. And I'm sick of it. Like if you're not really going to contribute anything to the crypto space, get out. You don't belong here. You know, this I'm as welcoming as a person as anybody, and I'm as forgiving and as tolerant as a person as anybody is. Even though I talk like I'm not. But what really grinds my gears is if you're just coming here out of greed, like you really have no idea what you're doing, you have no real plan, you don't really even care about the people that are giving you money, you don't want to really grow the space, you're just a freeloader. Yeah, I don't know what other word I can use. You're just a freeloader trying to find another easy way out in life. You don't belong here. You don't belong in my circles, right? Because we're not freeloaders. We're the real builders. We're the people that grow the industry, that build value in the industry, and that actually create performance. And everybody else is just a parasite, just trying to siphon off whatever they can get. Um, Seems like I always
I
end
mean,
our AMAs on a dark note like that.
I mean, if the power company, the cheapest power rate and the power company is like 1.234 cents, how can you offer 1 cent power?
This is where I say, guys, if it defies logic, right? If it looks nonsensical, it is nonsensical, right? This is clearly somebody saying a crazy number to grab somebody's attention and to grab their greed, right? It's clear
Hang on
manipulation.
greed.
It's clear manipulation, right? If it were possible to get 1 cent power in the UAE, don't you think me and Saqib would be using it? Don't you think? The only thing I can think of,
I,
Saqib, is that he's using mosque power, which is free.
well, yeah. I mean, but then he's selling like 8,000 NFTs, so I don't know where he's gonna put it.
See, none of that plan even, it doesn't even add up, and that's why I don't even waste my time. Like, if you're not even well, first of all, I don't even care if you got a bad plan, right? So I'm gonna kind of give a shout out to Roop. Um, Roop came, he visited the UAE, he asked a lot of really good questions. He learned about the business. He had many meetings with myself and with Saqib, private conversations. He took time to educate himself. What is realistic? What is unrealistic? What is plausible? What is possible? What is not? And he also heeded my advice and Saqib's advice. What is it? It's Cobra. What is it? Cobra Mining Club or Cobra Tech?
Mining.
Yeah, Cobra Mining. If you guys want in on something similar to Mineopoly, that's the place to go, guys, because that's got me and Saqib standing behind it, mentoring a guy who really wants to do things the right way and to create a stellar project that performs. And yeah, that's the only thing I can endorse at this moment, at this point in time, is that project, because he took the time to sit down, listen, and learn. And all these other people, well, many of them are afraid to talk to us. And I think part of it is because they don't want us to know, which we already know. Like, part of being afraid of us is knowing that, you've got holes in your story, your Swiss cheese. They don't want us to know that they're Swiss cheese. And I think the other part of it is they don't want us to know that they're outright fraud. And anytime you stand me up for a business meeting and you don't show, you're, it's hurting you more than it's hurting me. I might have lost 10 minutes of my time. I'm going to be a little pissed about it for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to, go out and have a walk, and I'll be fine. But you've done yourself a big disservice, because guess how likely I'm going to be to meet with you again if you try to reschedule? It's going to be a 0% chance. I'm very, very strict about people abusing my time. And yeah, this guy abused my time, and it's probably because he's fake as hell, and he knows that I'll smell that out real fast.
The other thing is we know all the people, all the boots on the ground,
Yeah,
and
we know
no
the
one.
power. We know, like, where's he gonna get 1 cent power when we know the head of the power company?
Yeah. I mean, I can guarantee you that there's no other people that are doing what we are. We're like literally boots on the ground, looking for properties, looking for plots of land that are suitable. And Ethan and I, we didn't start mining before we got this cheap power, even though we've been
Oh,
hobby
we've been mining for
mining.
years,
Yeah,
years. So my thing is, okay, you got 1 cent power. Show me that power bill.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Show me the power bill.
Show me that power bill, and I'll verify that it doesn't have any Photoshop done to it or anything like that. You show me that power bill, and then we'll go from there. But until then, you're just literally talking shit out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem is, man, like, the general public, the average everyday Joe, they need to just call people out on that. Show me that power bill. Show me multiple power bills. I don't want to see one. I want to see, November, December, and January's power bill. You show me 3 months of power bill, and you show me that you're consistently getting 1 cent cost. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that address of that power bill, and I'm going to verify, is that a real address? And I'm going to look at it on Google Maps, and I'm going to look around it. Is there infrastructure to support a mining operation. That's the first thing that me and Sakib do, man. When we get an order on our website and somebody orders like, 100 miners, 500, what's the first thing I do? I
We
put
check
in
the
their
address.
shipping address and I Google it on Google Maps and I look at it and I say, okay, yeah, these guys are the real deal. I can see a megawatt, I can see 2 megawatts, they're real
Right.
miners. And how many times have I caught dudes that like there's no way on earth they could be mining? Like I'm like, look at the street view.
Several
That's
times.
a residential transformer. Like that's 100 kVA max. And well, I do it for a couple of reasons because it's also put us in a position where we're like, okay, we can see that you want to mine. It doesn't look like you have any mining facilities. Can we help you with your build out? And that's given us opportunity as well, right? We've literally had people like they want to order 500 miners from us, and they don't know where they're going to plug them in. They haven't figured that part of the plan out. So it's helped us figure out like they don't know where they're going to plug these in. We need to step in and help them out. So it's not just to like point out that people are fake or things like that, but like you can glean a lot of information. That's kind of my point is you can glean a lot of information when people give you something as simple as an address. So you show me a power bill with an address, I'm going to Google that address. I'm going to look at the infrastructure around, and that's going to give me an idea of what your power potential is and what you really can do and can you deliver on this promise. So you want to create a 1 megawatt farm, that's not going to be possible at the address you're getting this power rate at. What you're getting this power rate out at is a mosque, and I don't know, we'll have to do a little bit of a deeper dive, Sakib, into the whole mosque thing. I know the mosques get free power, but I don't know like if there's no limit on like what they can request as a power upgrade. Do you, Sakib? No, like
As far as the UAE, there's not much mining going on in mosques. I know in Iran you have like mosques that are mining, but in the UAE, I don't really think there's that many. I mean,
well, I mean,
I
just
haven't seen any at any of the mosques.
well, if let's say if a mosque has a 200 kVA power supply, like that limits your options. I mean, you can run maybe 10, 15 miners off of that, and then you're using so much power that the mosque doesn't have power. So, can the mosque put in a request to upgrade to like 1 megawatt or 2 megawatts of power? If that's possible, that might be something that we would look into. But the whole thing about it, basically abusing religion for your greed, something about that doesn't sit right in my heart. It doesn't sit right in my soul. So, taking advantage of the goodwill of people's celebration of God for your personal greed so you can make more money. Does that sound right to any? Does that sound ethical to any of you guys? I don't even believe in God, but that doesn't feel right to me. And that's something I personally, that's a line I wouldn't be able to sleep well with myself. Sakib, what are your thoughts? Like, I couldn't sleep at night
Yeah,
knowing that.
honestly, I don't really know any mosque or like you have the head of the mosque, which is the imam, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
no imams like would
No,
allow
we
that
did
to be.
because you remember those guys that we met like the
No,
2 years ago, and
the,
they showed us
yeah,
that
two
they were
years
mining
ago.
in the mosque. Like they had like 10 miners, and they were mining in the mosque. And
But it wasn't like a major mosque or anything. It was out in the boondocks. It was
but
some
again,
maybe some small mosque.
they're
But yeah,
preying on that the mosques get free power. That's kind of the thing. Just like churches don't pay taxes in the U.S. and people abuse that to get out of paying taxes. I don't. I think. Let me put it this way: if there is a God, anybody using God as a way to fulfill their greed or as a loophole for their own greed, those are going to be the first people in line to hell. In my personal opinion, I mean, again, I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in heaven and hell, but those are going to be the people that are at the top of my list, right? If I was a God and if I was Satan, those are going to be the first people in the line. Like the murderers, the rapists, like they're going to be behind those guys because those guys, all they cared about was themselves. Like just had no thought for anybody else but themselves. And yeah, that's kind of unforgivable from my perspective. But we can get into theology and morality and all that stuff in a later AMA. It was great seeing all of you guys again. And again, I hope I don't find that because again, that's one of those things that somebody gets in trouble with, and then it gets all in the news,
right,
and then they think all of us Bitcoin miners are bad and unethical and terrible
exactly.
people because we're just going to take power wherever. Like we'll even rob a church or a mosque just to get our Bitcoin. And it's not like that at all. It's just the people who don't have a moral compass that do that stuff. And we clearly have shown that we have a moral compass. Looks like Matt
I
is
mean,
typing something. So, oh, go ahead, Saki.
well, I mean, I'm wondering, like, with the noise, how would you even conduct prayers?
Well, they had it in that little
Would you?
side room, and it was like
Yeah,
insulated, right? And when they opened it up, it was
but I think
loud, but when it closed, it wasn't that loud.
it was like 5 or 7 miners, if I remember,
Yeah.
right? So you can't really run a big operation out of a mosque. It might be just, a couple miners.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. If somebody who didn't have the moral compass decided to go nuts, and they were in the right favor with the head of the mosque, they could request a 1 megawatt power supply and build their own little separate building for that. I hope nobody does that. Really, guys, like I hope nothing like that happens, because that would just make me like feel disgusted, like at the pit of my stomach, and sad. And again, it would be the kind of thing that would attract a lot of negative attention and news articles and things like that. And we really just don't need that in that space. So, uh,
No.
all the more reason this, clearly this guy, the only way he'd be able to get power at that kind of rate is if he was doing something like that. So that should be a huge,
Yeah.
huge red flag. That being said, I'm going to sign off here. It's great seeing you again. We will see you again next Friday. And until then, yeah, we'll keep stacking those sats for you guys.
Keep stacking those sets.
All right, see you guys.